Howdy, folks. You're watching another episode of Story Time, unless you click off and just go play bingo or something. But anyway, this is going to be a 2-for-1 special today. It's both related, same topic. But when I moved here 2003, 4-ish, whatever it was, to Florida, I moved into an efficiency in Estero, Florida, not too far from Estero High School. So I ended up meeting these people, real nice people. They treated me well. It was very minimal conditions, I guess you could say politely, but it was. I was trying to get on my feet down here, and so I was okay with it because it was cheap, and that's what I needed until I, could get back on my feet from relocating from Virginia. So I got to meet a lot of their family. They were nice. They had a very nice house, very nice house. I had my own separate wing, not really tied into their house. There was a common door, but it was always shut. Like, I never had to travel, through their house to get to my living quarters. I had my own entrance. So this is funny. I've always, I don't know what it is about me, but I can't sleep unless I have the TV on. So I always sleep with the TV on. So I remember I was sleeping. This was probably 2008-ish. Could have been 2000. I don't remember, but I know it was the second half of the 2000s. And I vaguely remember hearing something about 16 nurses that hit the lottery. And they were with a local hospital here, and they had a little group that they called the Sweet 16. And every payday they would pitch in, and they would all, whatever the denomination was, I don't remember what it was, but they would all pitch in and play the Florida lottery. So I'm sure your brain is in fast track mode right now, and you're on the right path. I can promise you that. So my landlady was, I guess, I'm assuming she was like the head of that group. I don't know if they did a rotation on buying tickets, but right around the corner from our house was a 7-Eleven. So she purchases, these tickets. I don't know how many it was, whatever. But, the Sweet 16 group hit the Florida lottery for $6.2 million, right? So it was funny because I remember vaguely hearing something about that. I didn't realize who it was at the time. And literally like 2 days, I think that came out on a Friday or something, whatever it was. I remember there was a local Dunkin' Donuts not too far from where I lived with them. And matter of fact, I remember I went up there and I was drinking a cup of Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and I had the Sunday paper, and I was reading it. And all of a sudden, I see this story about these 16 nurses that hit the lottery, and I'm like, wow, I was like, that's pretty cool. Then I'm looking at the picture, reading the article, and my landlady, there was a husband and wife. She's real tall. She was probably every bit of 6'2" or whatever. And so I see her standing in the back, and then I'm reading the article, and they kind of quote her in the article, and she was the one that purchased the ticket. Can you imagine you're possessing a at any point in your life a lottery ticket for $6.2 million, right? So I was like, wow, that's, and then I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, that's cool for them, So they had to split it 16 ways. I think before taxes it was $375,000 per person. But somebody like back in the old days told me that they each cleared like $160,000 per person, which I don't see that being accurate. But I just did a little bit of research recently. I think it was $375,000. They each had their cut prior to taxes. So this is where it gets really funny, really interesting. I never said anything to them about it. That was their privacy. I never like, hey, can you give me a week's free rent, or I never did any of that nonsense. But I was, I was proud for them. I figured, if they ever tell me, they tell me. I'm not, that's their business. So the husband, his brother, I got to know his brother from like family events. There at the house, and I used to go to a watering hole called Beef O'Brady's, like a family sports bar type thing, kind of like a Buffalo Wild Wings, if you're not familiar with Beef O'Brady's. But so I was there one night. This was like, I don't know, several months later. I don't remember how long it was, but I know it wasn't like immediately after. And my landlord's brother was there. And so we get talking, and we're probably talking for, I don't know, like half hour or whatever. Really nice guy. And I know there was a little bit of, I don't know what you want to call it, dissension amongst the two brothers, whatever. I don't know. I'm not going to get into that. But so we're talking, and we're slinging some beers, and then I happen to mentioned something about about them winning the lottery. He's like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I'm like, "Oh crap!" I think I just put my foot in my mouth. So he starts, quizzing me about this, and I'm like, "Yeah, you don't know about this?" And I felt really bad now, because I'm like, "Oh man, I'm creating a family crisis, turmoil," and so I said, well, since the cat's out of the bag, might as well release it, So I tell him, and like, I guess he was upset because, he didn't know about it. Something was being hidden from him. I don't know if he was looking for his cut, or that's why they didn't tell him, but anyway, so that was like the family dynamics on that. So I'm like, wow. So I felt really bad. I never did mention anything, to my landlord, about that conversation, or I never ever mentioned anything about. But I did notice that for like 2 years, like I didn't see him around, and then I think finally they made amends or whatever. I don't know. So I felt like the bad guy in between a family crisis over finances, kind of like what I'm going through right now. But anyway, so I told you it was a 2 for special. So this is crazy. This is like, how many times can you meet like a multimillionaire, that won the lottery? And I could say this is episode number 2. This was actually the first episode. This was back between, I can tell you exactly when it was. It was probably between 1985 and 1989. I used to work with a guy named Tony Carnevale. He worked for the county police and the county fire board. He was a dispatcher for both. He kind of flip-flopped back and forth from time to time. Excuse me. Apologize for that. I'm not going to edit that out, because that's how I roll. Because edit is a bad 4-letter word. So he was a character. He was real high strung. But he played the lottery every day. He would do like the 3-digit, the 4-digit, the state lottery. This was in Delaware. And he was a nice guy. He had a really good heart. Just very high strung. Like when he was on the radio, oh my God, it was like chaos. But so he gets married, and I think he had a previous background as like a chef or something like that, like in his early years. But like I said, very high strung. Nice guy though, very nice guy. And he goes to 7-Eleven with his brother-in-law, and they're in line, and the brother-in-law gets like 10 lottery tickets. I think he got the quick picks. I'm pretty sure it was, I don't know if they had quick, whatever it was. He gets these 10 tickets and he just had a bad vibe on the ticket. So he was trying to like exchange it, and Tony was behind him and says, "No, here's $10. I'll give it to you." So he gives him $10, takes these tickets, and then he hits the lottery for $3.1 or $3.2 million, Delaware State Lottery, right? And funnier than hell, right? So this is like 2 people I've known that well, actually, there was a third one. It wasn't a lottery, but it was another big gambling win. But hits really big. So he goes out, he collects all this money, he buys a new house, buys a new truck for his wife, buys a new truck for his brother-in-law, buys a truck for himself, and 6 months later his wife divorced him. So I felt really bad about that, man. It's like, just like, you know, I don't know. Is it good to hit the lottery? Is it bad to hit the lottery? I know one thing, right? I would love to hit the lottery right now, even if it was like 25 hours. I mean, like, you know, I know there's going to be a lot of comments, you know, but two true stories, you know, not directly involving me, but I was somewhat infused into it a little bit. But anyway, people, peace, peace. Always know your legal limits.